They control with emotion. We reveal the pattern. Psych Atlas.
Have you ever noticed that the most respected person in a room rarely fights to be heard? While others scramble for validation, they simply exist. You've been programmed to believe that to gain respect, you must prove your value. You talk too much, over-explain yourself, and subtly beg for approval. This is your first fatal mistake. Human psychology is wired to devalue what is freely given. When you over-communicate, you signal low status. You willingly hand over your power. But there is a psychological mechanism, a dark, almost imperceptible trick that violently reverses this dynamic. A method that forces people to crave your validation. It doesn't require you to be louder, smarter, or richer. It requires you to weaponize something deeply uncomfortable: the psychological void. When faced with the void, a sudden, deliberate silence, the average human brain panics. It interprets the absence of a response as a direct threat to its social survival. To compensate for this perceived threat, they will begin to talk. They will reveal their insecurities, backtrack on their opinions, and desperately try to entertain you. They will negotiate against themselves. This is the law of withholding. The next time someone finishes a sentence, do not reply immediately. Hold their gaze. Let 3 agonizing seconds pass. In those 3 seconds, a violent power shift occurs in the room. The silence becomes a vacuum. You instantly become the judge, and they become the subject waiting for your verdict. But silence is only the foundation. To truly anchor their respect, to ensure they subconsciously defer to you forever, you must master the disinterested glance. The disinterested glance is not about arrogance. It is a calculated visual signal that communicates one devastating message. You are not as impressive as you think you are. When someone boasts, gossips, or tries too hard to win your favor, they expect a reaction. By withholding your facial expression and looking slightly bored, you short-circuit their dopamine loop. You deny them the emotional payoff they were desperately seeking. This triggers a deep, subconscious anxiety within them. Suddenly, their ego is bruised. Without realizing why, they will shift their behavior. They will start working for your approval. You have effectively made them your psychological subordinate. But breaking someone's ego is useless if you don't know how to bind them to you. This brings us to the final and most dangerous phase of total psychological control. The greatest manipulators do not remain cold forever. Continuous coldness breeds resentment. Instead, they use a psychological trap known as intermittent reinforcement. Think of a slot machine. The reason it is so addictive is the unpredictability of the reward. To bind someone to you, you must become that unpredictable reward. After starving them of your reaction, wait for them to do exactly what you want. Then, suddenly, grant them your absolute, undivided attention, a rare smile, total validation. This sudden shift from freezing cold to intense warmth violently floods their brain with dopamine. It is an emotional high, and subconsciously, they will credit you as the source. They will spend the rest of your relationship chasing that high, desperate to earn your warmth again. But there is a fatal flaw in this system you must fiercely protect against. The fatal flaw is your own ego. The moment you start enjoying the power too much, you become predictable. And predictability is the absolute death of respect. When they become desperate for your validation, they might try to provoke you. They will use sudden anger, guilt trips, or artificial distance to force an emotional reaction out of you. If you show anger, you lose. If you explain why you are acting cold, you lose. The very moment you justify your behavior to them, you step down from your pedestal. True psychological dominance requires you to be an emotional black hole. You observe their chaotic storm, but you do not let it pull you in. Kings do not explain themselves. But what happens when you encounter someone who already knows these dark rules? Someone who is actively trying to run this exact psychological operation on you? Eventually, you will encounter another predator. When they deploy the void, when they pause and stare, expecting you to crumble, your instinct will be to panic. You must do the exact opposite. You must mirror the vacuum. If they give you 3 seconds of silence, you give them 5. Do not flinch. Do not break eye contact. Dark psychology relies on predictable human weaknesses. When you deny a manipulator the panic they're used to extracting, their own anxiety loop violently activates. It becomes a silent war of attrition. And the very moment they crack, the second they open their mouth to fill the unbearable silence, they have surrendered their crown to you. Defeating a manipulator is just defense. But if you want to systematically program anyone to see you as an unquestionable authority figure, you must weaponize the scarcity illusion. Economics and psychology share one brutal law. Value is entirely dependent on rarity. If your presence, your words, and your time are easily accessible, you are fundamentally worthless. The average person is desperate to be liked. They respond to messages instantly. They say yes to every invitation. They linger in conversations, terrified of being forgotten. You must do the opposite. Manufacture artificial scarcity. Never be the last one to leave a room. Never let a conversation drag on until it naturally dies. You must cut it short. Leave while the interaction is still at its peak. This exploits a psychological glitch called the Zeigarnik Effect. The human brain fixates endlessly on incomplete experiences. By leaving early, you leave an unscratchable itch in their subconscious. They will obsess over you long after you are gone. But what if they try to follow you into the dark? When you create a void, some people will not pull back. Instead, they will desperately push forward, demanding more of your time, crossing boundaries to pull you back in. This is where you deploy the phantom wall. Do not reject them completely, as that makes you a clear enemy. Instead, grant them access, but heavily restrict the terms. Tell them, I have exactly 2 minutes, or you can walk with me to my car. Force them to interact with you inside a shrinking psychological box of your own design. They will feel a false sense of victory because they secured your attention, but subconsciously, they just fully accepted that your time is infinitely more valuable than theirs. You are training them like a shadow master. But controlling their behavior is only the beginning. The ultimate power lies in a technique that rewrites their internal self-worth entirely. To rewrite someone's self-worth, you must dismantle their certainty. You do not do this with aggression. You do this through a dark technique called calculated invalidation. You never insult them directly. Insults are weak and expose your emotional reactivity. Instead, you casually point out a minor, hyper-specific flaw in something they are deeply proud of. That's a brilliant idea, though it lacks a certain depth, doesn't it? You deliver this with chilling calm and immediately change the subject before they can defend themselves. By denying them the chance to argue, you trap the critique inside their mind. It will echo. They will obsess over that single flaw, frantically trying to fix it just to win back your absolute approval. You have now become the sole architect of their reality. But this level of psychological dominance carries a terrifying risk. If you're not prepared for this final truth, it will destroy you instead. The terrifying risk of playing the shadow master is profound isolation. When you successfully program everyone to defer to you, you are no longer interacting with equals. You are surrounded by mirrors. You win their absolute respect, but you forfeit the right to ever be vulnerable. The moment your mask slips, the illusion shatters, and the subjects will violently turn on the king they once feared. These psychological mechanics are weapons. Use them to protect yourself from manipulators. Use them to command a room when necessary, but never mistake submission for loyalty. True power isn't just about bending others to your will. It's about mastering your own mind so no one else can. Welcome to the unseen matrix of human behavior. The strings that control human behavior are never cut, only revealed. If you are ready to master the unseen matrix, subscribe to Psych Atlas. It's time to see. The shadows hold more secrets. Choose your next lesson wisely and continue your descent into the architecture of control. Stay sharp.